Hello, my gremlins. Today we are going to tell vague, Pixar didn't happen stories because I do not want to reveal anything that I will regret, but I do have something really important that I want to tell all of you, so my examples will be from my own life, all with fake names and no receipts. Jaden Animations made a really nice video that summarizes a lot of the behaviors and red flags that are telling of a toxic relationship, and because I am a literal pile of hamburger meat that crumbles under the slightest pressure of feeling like the bad guy, I've made myself vulnerable to so many toxic interactions. Just the most insane shit you wouldn't believe. But we're not starting with the insane shit, because it's important for people dealing with less extreme abuse to still feel validated in their feelings, no matter how suppressed or faint they may be right now. So let's start with a pretty basic one that I think anyone could probably go through without realizing it for a while. Before I moved to Arkansas to be with my husband, I made friends with a real human. Whoa! Yeah, I had a friend that I hung out with in real life, as well as in text. It was awesome. My mom's friend introduced me to her granddaughter, who we will call Pansier, because that was sort of her temporary persona for a bit. And our parents/grandparents thought we would like each other because we both liked art and anime. They were right. We became fast friends and talked non-stop. I went to visit her at her house or her grandma's store almost every day. This was before I had any obligations besides school and Dark World OCT. We drew tons of art together, she introduced me to Pokemon and got me excited to finally purchase my first Pokemon game, Pokemon Black, and is the best character, don't at me. We roleplayed, we shared a few quiet moments, the store started to smell like Pokemon to me. I don't know what that means, but it did. My nose gets very nostalgic sometimes. But things started to get kind of uncomfortable when my husband came into the picture. Just for reference, my husband's name is Fluffy. Fluffy and I were just friends for a good couple of years before we started dating. We met through the Dark World OCT, but didn't really start talking a lot until Pansier actually suggested that we ask somebody we both knew to join our little BFF group. She suggested another fellow Dark World contestant, and I suggested Fluffy, and for a little bit, we were all definitely some good-ass friends. We had three-way calls, we all made art for each other's birthdays, we all roleplayed with one another. These were my peas in a pod, the people I was convinced I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. We were gonna live in one big house together as roommates and just make art and play games all day and be blissful and happy. At least that's what I thought because I was so sheltered that I didn't understand that the world doesn't work like that. However, one day while I was visiting my grandparents in another state, Pansier was texting me and telling me about how Fluffy had sent her some X's and O's while offering his support during a really tough time in her life, which I was also trying to help her through, and pretty consistently drowning in the process. But that's a story for another day. She expressed to me that after that she had considered possibly asking him out, or that maybe he might like her. He was one of the only people her age that she liked talking to that could potentially be a partner in her eyes. And I understand this because she had a lot of trouble socializing or even meeting people. Now, Fluffy is a completely oblivious dork, or at least he was for a very long time. He had never dated anyone for longer than a week before me, and he had told me about several times in the past when his friends had told him about a girl pretty obviously making a move on him, and him having no idea. He was that kind of guy in high school. But Pansier didn't know that, and it wasn't wrong for her to develop a slight little crush, of course. But that never really became anything, and we kind of forgot about it. Until Fluffy and I started dating. The day after we asked each other out, I called Pansier all excited, and she teasingly asked me, "So you've been talking to Fluffy?" Which to me sounds like playful encouragement, and I kinda nodded, like, maybe. And the conversation got a little weird. She vaguely brought up how he had seemingly expressed an interest in her in the past, and then said something like, well, whichever one of us he chooses, it'll be fine. But I thought I had told her that he actually did choose me last night. We didn't just flirt or send each other heart emojis, we explicitly told each other that we wanted to date and we had crushes on each other. Now, I do not remember how clear I was. I was very bad at communicating to others if I was uncomfortable. But I wasn't uncomfortable. I thought it was all good, like, yay, we're dating now. So I don't know what that vague reluctance to acknowledge my new relationship was about. As Fluffy and I started to call and text more often, play games together, Skype almost all day, every day, Pansier did see a little less of me. And I want to stress, I was not ignoring her on purpose, and I didn't mean to push her aside for my man. But I kind of did, and I acknowledged that it was probably more hurtful than I intended. But I was still in high school and I had limited energy and just, this shit happens with every couple. It's just part of it. I'm sorry, bros, but when one of your friends loves someone, they're going to want to start spending more time with them than before, and that's normal. Unless they're legit just no longer giving a shit about you or your feelings, then it shouldn't mean that your friendship now means less. But either way, Panseer was starting to get a little disappointed that I would frequently turn down offers to hang out or call because I was spending time with Fluffy. And I understand that too, especially for someone who couldn't just go down a roster of friends on Discord or go play with the neighbors. I was one of her only friends. Okay, so skip ahead like some months probably? I don't remember. Actually, no, I do. Fluffy and I met for the first time on my birthday a year later, and after that we planned for me to spend the entire summer with him in Arkansas. I lived in Missouri, by the way. By all accounts, I wouldn't blame anyone for being more than a little nervous about an 18-year-old high school student going to another state to stay with an older man that she had met online for 3 months with no backup. But my mom had not only heard our countless Skype conversations and met him in real life, she saw how good he treated me and how happy I was with him. And she found it in her heart to trust us enough to let me do this, because I still had a year of high school left, and this was the perfect opportunity to really get to know him for who he really was at home, in his comfort zone, in sickness and in health. When I told Panseer about this, she didn't like it, which, okay, again, it's understandable that one would be nervous about what could happen to tiny me alone in another state for 3 months. But what she ended up saying to me made me really upset. She told me that her mom had made an offhand comment about how I was probably going to go visit Fluffy, get pregnant over the summer, and end up with a baby because I was so careless. Mind you, this woman has never even spoken to me, never met me, so I wasn't all too offended by her dumb assumption. What I was offended by was that my best friend, who does know me, who does understand how I am likely to act, and who should have enough respect for me not to do what she fucking did in this situation, believed her mom without question and told me, I don't want to be friends with someone who is that kind of irresponsible. As if I was. I was so flabbergasted. Like, how do you manage to say that to someone you've been close friends with for years at this point? What is going on in that brain, sister? So I called her out on this, and I remember her saying something like, well, I'll just shut up from now on, which is entirely not how you respond to someone pointing out that your assumptions are gross and unfounded. But that fight kind of blew over. I went to spend the summer with Fluffy, didn't get pregnant or murdered, and we continued to date throughout my senior year of high school. And I noticed after a while that every time I would mention Fluffy or our relationship in any way while I was talking to Panseer, she would suddenly seem really uninterested or even annoyed. Which kind of freaked me out since Fluffy was such an important part of my life now. We were already talking about how we were likely going to get married one day. Why would I avoid telling my best friend about my boyfriend who I thought was her friend too? Eventually, I became legitimately convinced that she did not know we were dating, because of the way she would react to me every time I talked about him. So I decided to come clean to her in hopes that we could relieve some tension. It didn't. It was awkward. She was downright resentful of him by this point, and I didn't understand why. Eventually, I remember confronting her about this and telling her gently that I felt like we were toxic for each other, and she seemed to agree with me and even thought I was being mature. But we both still liked each other and missed the good old days, and neither of us truly wanted to just end the relationship, so we just kinda kept talking after that. I didn't end up breaking things off officially or anything. I was never brave enough to do it because of that thought that often comes up when you consider cutting ties with a toxic friend. They're not always mean. I usually love being around them. Sure, they really hurt me this time, but some days I just can't get enough of them. Because of these thoughts, along with the guilt that always comes from being the bad guy, I just quietly let the relationship fade away after I finally moved to Arkansas. I enjoyed one last old-fashioned hangout with Panseer before I left, and I'm kind of glad I left off on a fairly positive note. I don't think I would have been able to handle that, breaking the relationship off or something at that time. I still can barely handle it. I think that would have really messed me up. In the end, I really don't think she was a bad person. She was in a bad situation, had little to no support most of her life, was mentally ill, and her toxic attitude never really scarred me or anything. Except for the fact that the word heh is kind of ruined for me. It's like sending me K. It just makes me think you're annoyed with me because she would do that all the time instead of just ending the conversation. And eventually, even she got tired of us spending hours texting literal unsweet nothings like that. But we had no idea what to even say to each other for quite a while, which is one of the reasons our relationship died. But anyway, I'm gonna continue this as a little series, I guess, about toxic people in my life. In the next one, I'm going to talk about someone who did damage me, and it's going to be much more extreme. I started with Panseer because she's a good example of a friendship that got sour over time, and I want to end this video by saying, if someone you care about frequently makes you feel like you're annoying them, that you're inadequate, that you or someone you love has done something to deserve the cold shoulder, or just really in general, if this person causes you extreme stress or pain, even if it isn't more than 50% of the time, and they're not changing and they're not receiving your criticism well, you have every right to leave that relationship behind. It may hurt. It may make you feel like you're the bad guy for giving up on that person, but you're not responsible for other people's happiness, and you deserve to feel secure with the people you consider friends. I cannot stress this enough. This is far from the only story about someone causing me pain, whether intentionally or not, and me being too scared to stand up and say that I don't want to be treated like that anymore. Please, please, please take care of yourself. Talk to your friends, tell them how you feel, and if they continue to hurt you after you've tried and tried, don't feel bad for doing what you have to for your own mental health. Tune into the next video in this series to hear a story about someone who actually abused me. Woo! That was a kind of depressing one, huh? I'm fine, like, honestly. I just really wanted to get back into that mindset and kind of relive some of these emotions for you guys, because I really want this video to impact you in some way. It's such a hard lesson to learn, to convince your brain, like, it's okay to leave, you know, God, I'm still struggling with it, like, honestly, it's so hard, it's one of my biggest flaws, so I really wanted to, I don't know, it's, this part is unscripted. As usual, feel free to give the video a like if you liked it, and a dislike if you think I'm a dumbass. Please subscribe if you want to hear more videos from me. I have a Patreon, I have a Twitter, a Tumblr, a Facebook, an Instagram, blah blah blah. Links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. One more thing real quick, I just want to make this clear. I don't regret being friends with this person or anything like that. I still have a lot of fond memories of the time we spent together, and the bad parts taught me a lot of stuff, and, you know, it's just part of my past. It's all good. I don't have any regrets about it, so, yeah.